Hello, friends. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My audio levels don't look too good on the YouTubes. There's one person watching. I'm wondering if that one person can let me know in the chat if you can hear me or not. I think you can. But in case you can, today we're going to talk about the failed vote to. Okay, great. Thanks, Venom. Thanks, Spirits. Thanks, Wade. What's up, Wade? Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about Taiwan's failed vote to kick out pro-China lawmakers because I thought it was interesting and I wanted to have a chat with you guys about it because I don't know everything. But it was big news here in Taiwan over the weekend because on Saturday, Taiwanese people went to the voting places. And what it was about the Legislative Yuan, which is a body of the government that is like all the lawmakers basically. And right now, the majority of those are KMT or the Kuomintang. They hold most of those seats. And the Kuomintang is the party that is considered to be more pro-China. They want to do more economic deals with China. They want to cool down tensions with China. They want to, basically have a better relationship with China so that Taiwan can make more money. Which is weird because they weren't always like that. In the past, they were very much sort of against China because China's communist, and the KMT used to vow that they'll go back to China and retake it. That, of course, never ended up happening for all kinds of different reasons. But now they're considered to be a lot more closer to China than the current government is. And anyway, so they hold most of the seats. And they do things like maybe there'll be a law that they want to get passed to increase Taiwan's defense budget, and they have the power to not allow that to happen. Or they'll do things like decrease the defense budget. And there were some people in Taiwan who felt that that was not in the best interest of Taiwan, and it definitely seemed like they were working with China, like these lawmakers were kind of in China's pocket. And so they wanted to have a vote to kick these people out of the Legislative Yuan. And this has happened before. Votes like this has happened before in Taiwan, just not on this scale. I think, what was it, 32 seats, 36 seats or something, which is a lot they were going to kick out and then hopefully get the other party to take those seats. And I found it interesting because I've heard all kinds of different opinions about it. The Green Party or the DPP, the Pro-Independence Party, they are very much against China, and they're often very suspicious of the KMT because of how close the KMT is to China. A lot of people that you meet, if they vote for the KMT or if their family is very KMT, they'll actually say that they're Chinese, like, oh, we're Chinese. And they don't mean that they're communist. It's just that English isn't like nuanced enough. It's not, we don't have the word that they're trying to use. What they mean is like, I identify as Chinese, like ethnically and culturally, but I'm Chinese Taiwanese, if that makes sense. Whereas people who vote DPP or Green Party, they typically see themselves as like just Taiwanese and they want nothing to do with China. And so in order for this vote to pass, they needed, God, I had the numbers somewhere and then now I've lost them. Anyways, it doesn't matter. They needed like a certain percentage of people to show up and a certain percentage of those votes to count. Queenie Rowland says, hi, Prozzy, what's up? And it never worked. Not a single person lost those seats. So it's still held by the KMT. It completely failed. And just anecdotally from my experience, most of the people that I met, that I talked to, because it was in the news and it seemed like a big deal, the people in my life that I talked to about it didn't really seem to care, or they didn't seem to like get it. They didn't really seem to understand what the vote was about. And then on Instagram, I would see people who were like very active and trying to get people to go and vote for this thing or vote against it. And the vote wasn't even spurred on by the DPP. It was spurred on it was started sort of locally by just people. What I mean by that is like, okay, so these seats are held by the KMT, and so you would assume that the opposition party, the DPP, would start this vote to kick them out. And I don't think that's what happened. I think it was like more of a grassroots thing. It started with a protest in 2024, I think, the Bluebird protests or whatever they're called. And then the DPP got involved, and they would hire people to go out maybe not hire people, but they would get like their supporters to go onto the streets and hold signs that say, vote to kick these people out from their seats. But even like the people holding these signs didn't really get it. They weren't like, I think there was like a communication issue. Like people weren't really clear on what this vote was doing. And it failed completely. Do you really know about the vote of recall? Kind of. I'm trying to explain it right now. And that's why I don't know everything about it. And that's why I'm doing this live stream, so that I can talk to you guys about it and get your opinion. And then we can all kind of have a better understanding of what happened. And it failed. Like the vote just didn't pass. And this can be a problem if those allegations of the KMT people who hold the seats, if they are actually tied to China, if they are actually in China's pocket, and the vote failed, that's a problem for Taiwan, obviously, because now more and more of these laws that are not in Taiwan's interests are going to get passed, or the laws that are in Taiwan's interests won't get passed. And it kind of, now it's this political mess that they're in right now, because the KMT called the vote undemocratic, even though it was a vote. Dave and AZ says Taiwan needs to inform everyone about what happened in Hong Kong. They trusted China. Yeah, I think Taiwan took a long, hard look at what happened in Hong Kong and don't trust the Chinese very much at all. I think, yeah, this person says it's all about money. It could be. I mean, I think that's an easy thing to say about most things in politics, but who knows? I think because the DPP didn't start this movement, I think people were genuinely concerned about these people having so much power and doing things that were so damaging to Taiwan. If those allegations are true, I don't know. AT says, it came in a bit late, but what is the reason it actually failed? I thought the Taiwanese people were super opposed to Chinese influence in general. You're right. Most Taiwanese people are opposed to Chinese influence. That's true. Not everyone in Taiwan is, but most people are. But the reason it failed is that not everyone believed the allegations, and they thought it was a bit much. They thought it was a bit too extreme. Like they thought it was not necessary to do this and kind of a big waste of time and money. But I don't know if I buy that. Like people say, oh, this was such a huge waste of money. And maybe it was, but like you have to understand the Taiwanese government has so much money. It is a very wealthy government. Most governments are. But the Taiwanese government in particular is wealthy because of their trade. With the semiconductor computer chips that they sell to the world, they had like the money that they spent on this vote was like a drop in the bucket compared to what kind of money the government has. But the reason it failed was just like not everyone kind of bought into it. People thought it was kind of a waste of time, or people thought it was a bit of it was too conspiratorial, and it wasn't. I think a lot of people just didn't buy into it. And I think that a lot of people who vote for the Green Party, the DPP party, the kind of pro-separatist party, while they might agree with those politics, I don't think they fully, I can't speak for everyone, right? I'm just giving you, I can't even speak today. I'm giving you anecdotal stories. Like this is just from what I hear from Taiwanese friends, from what I can understand. They don't necessarily trust the party. And I think it came off too much as like a power grab by the DPP, because if, like, let's say, for example, every single person lost the seats that they held, and then the DPP went in and controlled it, it would give them like a majority government, and then the DPP would have like a ton of power. And not everybody in Taiwan wants that. I think that Taiwanese people can appreciate the fact that there's sort of a yin and a yang here, where, yeah, the Green Party is in power, but the KMT still has some power within the legislative yen to kind of balance that out. And so I think that might be the reason why it failed. I've been under a rock, but in Taiwan, did the KMT lose some parliamentary seats or not? They didn't lose any seats. I think they held on to all of the ones that were up for not up for grabs, but that people were voting for. Seats are shared between TPP and KMT. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. The KMT teamed up with the TPP, which is a different political party. So like there's in Taiwan, there's two major political parties. There's the DPP, represented by the color green, so we call them the Green Party, and the KMT, or the Kuomintang, represented by the color blue. The TPP is a third party, but they're not really as powerful. It's the same thing, not the same thing, but a lot like the same thing. Like if I'm Canadian, I don't know how many people here are watching are Canadian, but when the Liberal Party and the NDP Party teamed up back when Justin Trudeau was in power, it was a bit like that. And so those seats are held not just by the KMT. Sorry, I forgot about that little tidbit. The TPP also held seats. TikTok and Red Note is the problem. Chinese propaganda. You're not wrong there. I think you're probably right. I would agree. I think that China absolutely bombards Taiwan with a lot of propaganda, and you see a lot of younger people now who kind of fall for it. Or they are just kind of fatigued by it, so they tend to not have an opinion about it at all. Like, they just don't care. They're like, what? China's going to invade? I don't care. How does it affect my life? Because it's just sort of all of this back and forth between the two countries is fatiguing for them, and so they just don't have an opinion on it, which is sad to see. But I think you're probably right. Neko says people are tired of DPP keep using China's threat as an excuse. Yeah, that's a tough one, because while it's possible to use it as an excuse, it's not like that threat is not real. You know what I mean? It's not like the DPP is making it up. But yeah, AT says, well, in a way, from what you're saying, it sounds good that the Taiwanese people aren't easily persuaded by things that are not proven, even if the conspiracy is in their interest. I suppose, yeah. John the B123 says, the motion lost because the DPP is deeply unpopular. Lie only won because the opposition was split between the KMT and the TPP. I don't know that the DPP is deeply unpopular. I think President Lai isn't that popular, from what you could be right. I'm not trying to argue with you. You definitely could be right. Just from what I've heard, I think that the Green Party is still favored among a lot of Taiwanese, but President Lai isn't particularly all that popular. He doesn't have the same charisma that his predecessor, Tsai Ing-wen, had. Tsai Ing-wen was a pretty popular president. A lot of people really liked her, but President Lai just doesn't have, he just seems, to a lot of people, he seems a lot like a bit of a puppet, or unable to do things on his own. He just seems to be continuing on a lot of the things that his predecessor did. And that happens in like a lot of countries, like in my country included. A lot of people just get tired of just having the same political party in office. Well, I suppose not like my country, since we've been liberal for a very long time. But you kind of get what I mean. Hey, Reformat. My buddy Matt's in the chat. What's up, man? I can't wait for him to come back to Taiwan. We hung out in Kaohsiung for a bit. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. Wang Liao says, not propaganda, but truth. Well, Soul Life says, is Taiwan holding string against the global rise in fascism? I don't know what you mean. Holding string, what does that mean? Venom 1946 says, for me, this really seems like the KMT tries to appease China and that way keeping Taiwan's independence and some control in their own hands, while the other party, in this case, the DPP, opposes that appeasing. Yeah. There's two ways of looking at it, or two ways. There's probably more than two ways, but there's kind of two schools of thought when people talk about how to deal with China. And one of them, like you said, is the KMT's way, which is appeasing China. Like, we'll keep our independence. We're not going to call it independence. We're not going to say we're independent, but we'll keep doing our thing over here in Taiwan. You do your thing in China. We'll make a bunch of money together, and we'll just not talk about this whole conflict that we have going on here. And that's kind of the KMT strategy. The DPP has a lot more of a bold strategy, and they kind of poke the hornet's nest a little bit, and they say, no, we're already Taiwanese, we're already independent, we want nothing to do with China, we're going to build up our defenses, and we're going to be our thing. And you can see why both of those are appealing to people, and there's no easy answer. It's easy from the outside to just take the DPP side, the green side, and say, yeah, Taiwan, pro-independence, Taiwan #1, we're not Chinese. But you're not living here, and you're not under the constant threat of invasion and potential war. And so you can see how dangerous that might be. And so people might, I'm not expressing an opinion on this, by the way, I don't know, I'm an idiot. But so then you can see why people would like the KMT way of doing things, which is more appeasement and more status quo. And Venom also says this is like both sides attacking each other for opposing policies by claiming the other parties is X nefarious thing. Yeah, it's typical, right? Typical politics. President lie. I see what you did there, Soul Life. Eric says, off topic, but I'm teaching in Korea. Cool. Hope you enjoy Korea. I've been to Korea a few times. I enjoyed my time there. I didn't live there. I visited for a few months. I enjoyed it. Planning on coming to Taiwan to teach in a few months, but my bachelor's degree is a duplicate. I lost my original one in a move. Is that expected for a permit? Well, if your bachelor is a duplicate, like is the duplicate from the university, then you're fine. They are going to need to see your degree if that's what you're asking. Yeah. But compared to a lot of countries, the visa requirements are pretty laxed. Like, I know to get a visa to teach in Japan, it's a mess. They need transcripts, they need everything. But here it's not like, they do need your degree. Eric, no one's asked for a real copy. Nobody asked for a real copy of your bachelor's. They asked me, but I don't know. Lee JJ says, fine, now all of the world knows Taiwanese is China friendly. I don't think so. It's more nuanced than that. You know, these things are so complicated. I don't think that this vote told the world that Taiwan is friendly to China. I think it just, if anything, I think it just exposed the nuances of the political system here. Like, not everyone is pro-green, you know? Even the people who, like I said, even the people who vote green don't necessarily trust the party completely. You know, you might be pro-green, you might be pro-Taiwan independence and all of that, but you still might not want that party to have that much power, if that makes sense. And also, I don't know that this story made headlines. I know it did. I saw it on the BBC, but like, I don't think it made a huge splash internationally. Or maybe it did, but I don't think that it did. Some people describe DPP political misophobia. That's a new word for me. August says, as a Taiwanese person, I believe the main issue is that the DPP has not improved people's livelihoods, yet they keep warning that China is going to attack, even though that is a fact. So August brings up a really good point, and he's right, or she. that the cost of living in Taiwan is going up, like it is everywhere in the world, but the wages aren't. And I think Taiwanese people have grown to be quite used to low cost of living. So compared to the West is a large place, but typically speaking, um, rent in Taiwan is cheaper. Food, transportation, those kinds of things are usually cheaper. However, major purchases, so things like if you're going to buy a home or a car, are stupid expensive in Taiwan. I mean, stupid expensive. Like, cars are expensive because Taiwan has a lot of import taxes on them. So Taiwanese people pay a lot more to buy a car than you would if you lived somewhere else. And housing prices are expensive for a number of reasons. I remember I asked my teacher about this. I'm taking Chinese lessons now. And on Saturday, I went to my lesson and I asked my teacher about it. And I fucking forget her answer now. Someone will tell me in the comments. But so things like that are going really high up. And now a lot of young people in Taiwan are becoming a bit disenfranchised because there's no goddamn way they're going to be able to afford a home on their horrible salaries unless one of their parents dies and they get inheritance or something like that. So it's really hard for young people. And I think that a lot of people are kind of sick of the government. It's the exact same thing that happened in my country in Canada. The Liberal Party was in power for with the same leader for 9 or 10 years or something. And the cost of living in Canada went up, 1 billion times over or something. And because of Trump and a few other reasons, in our latest election, we voted the Liberals in again. It just is whatever. And a lot of Canadians look at the Liberal government as the reason why the cost of living has gone up so much in Canada. And the same thing's happening here in Taiwan. Same kind of thing anyways. So, yeah. The North says DPP is appeasing US, not doing its own thing. Yeah, that's a very much a Chinese talking point or a Chinese perspective. A lot of people in China will say that. They'll say things like, Taiwan's not a puppet of China, it's a puppet of the US, or they're just, kowtowing to the US, or they're just a US puppet, and that kind of thing. I don't know if I believe that, though. Wang Liao says, if the freedom world believes Taiwan as a country, why none of them build diplomatic relationships with it? They do. They might not be formal diplomatic relations, but they do. Taiwan has trade deals with a ton of countries and good relationships with a ton of countries. They might not be official because they don't want to upset the Chinese, because the Chinese government has a bit of a glass heart, but they definitely have relationships with other countries. Ross Moore-Farr says, at least Taiwan doesn't have their equivalent of the Sanseito? What is that? I'm just looking at Sanseito is an ultra-conservative right-wing populist party in Japan. Oh. Is that the party that's really anti-foreigner? Another reason why the DPP has already been in power for 8 years, and the problems such as low wages and young people are being unable to afford housing. That remains unresolved. And yeah, that's what I was saying, August. Men Taiko says, some Taiwanese hate the KMT, but they also don't like the DPP. Admit they won't really get involved in the vote this time. Yeah, I think if the politicians don't give the people enough of a reason to vote, then the voter turnout might be low. But who knows, right? Like in politics, anything can happen. So who knows? Maybe there'll be a massive voter turnout this time around. Things can change really quickly. But that is one thing that I am concerned with, though. And there's a whole bunch of comments I haven't gotten to, but I'll get to them in a minute. But one thing that concerns me So I often reference this book called My Country and My People by Lin Yutang. I love this book. He wrote it before the Civil War, and he wrote it about Chinese culture, at the heart of Chinese culture. So, this is before the communists, kind of around the time that China was Kuomintang. And he talks about the reason why Chinese people have never had the right to vote or never really dabbled in democracy. One of them is obviously democracy hasn't been around for that long in the grand scheme of things. If you look at the history of China and how long it is, like democracy hasn't been around for that long. But also culturally speaking, Chinese people have never cared about it. They've always had a single party dictatorship, a single party state, right? Like all those dynasties that they went through are just single party states. And they've never really cared about who runs the country because they don't have a social, they don't really have a, they don't concern themselves with things that are immediately outside of their social sphere. So they see it as kind of a waste of time or a bit immature to talk about things like who's running the country, right? If you have enough food to eat, if you have a roof over your head, you have a family, you make enough money, all is well, And Taiwanese people are the first experiment where people of that same Chinese culture have been given the right to vote. And I wonder if that cultural influence, because it is a backbone, it is a pillar of Chinese culture, this sort of not voting. It's not just not voting, it's more complicated than that, but that's one of the things he talks about. And I wonder if that cultural influence plays a role in voter turnout, if that makes sense. Like, because I have met, this is what blows my mind, when you consider the situation that Taiwan finds itself in and how dangerous it is, you would think that most people in Taiwan are extremely political and have a strong opinion on things. But a lot of Taiwanese people that I meet do not and don't care and feel tired of it. I'm not blaming them. Like, they don't have to be, right? Like, who am I to say that they have to be political? It just kind of surprised me how unpolitical, is that a word? Not political people are here. It's just, I don't know, it's an interesting thing I think about, but I could be totally wrong too, right? So yeah. Thanks for providing this forum, Prazi. You got it, Tony. Kiwi Panda says, lots of love from Paul. You're not Paul, the guy I worked with in China. I'm not going to say your last name because I don't want to dox you. I already know your last name because you have the same last name as my other Kiwi buddy. I used to work with this guy, a Kiwi guy in China. We had some fucking wild times together. It was a lot of fun. Tony says, also congrats on 159K subs. Good to see the numbers slowly creeping up. Yeah, my channel grows. You said it. Yeah, it's a slow growth. It's my fault. I don't put enough effort into it. John the B123 says, I used to be a DPP supporter. Very common for an expat. Once I committed to Taiwan long term, it makes more sense not to poke the bear. Most Taiwanese don't really want to fight China. I mean, yeah, of course not, right? Who wants war? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. But I see what you're saying. One of my Taiwanese friends put it to me like this. They said, my heart is with the Green Party, but my wallet is with the Blue Party. which is kind of an interesting way of looking at it. I saw a video of Chinese spouse voting for the KMT, which made me question the policy change from 6 years to 4 years. What policy are you talking about? Did you enjoy working at Lynx? It is Paul. Lynx. You know what's funny, Paul? I have a video coming out on Friday, and I think you're in it for a bit. Because remember that day we were at work and we looked down at the street and it flooded, like the street turned into a river. And me and you were like, how the hell are we going to get home? And then there's another part where my buddy Beard got stuck in my bathroom. Went to the bathroom to take a piss, but the door, and he locked it, but the door broke. And so you and our other buddy had to pick the lock and bust him out of the bathroom. And I have that clip in that video somewhere. What a coincidence. Around what's your Mandarin level now in A1 to C2 terms? I have no idea. I've never ranked my Chinese ability. When I was in China, we used to use HKS, but I forget what HKS level I was at. I don't know, whatever intermediate is. Jesus Christ, sorry, I'm falling behind on this chat a bit. McNisk, I don't know how to read that, says the turnout was almost 60%, which is not low at all. But I don't think it was enough, right? Didn't they need at least 25% of that, whatever the district that seat was? That was the minimum amount of voters that needed to turn up. Again, like I said, I could be wrong. So maybe it was a high turnout rate, but the vote still failed. So Rossmore Far says this summer had 2,000 Chinese and 1,000 Taiwanese climbing Mount Fuji on the same day. Was waiting for it to kick off. I think you'd pretty rarely see Taiwanese and Chinese people argue in public together about, maybe you would, but they're usually a bit, it's often, when they're together, it's often Taiwanese and Chinese university students, they'll study university together in Germany, right? Where they'll go to Germany, they'll live in a dorm, and their roommate's Chinese. So now you have a Taiwanese and a Chinese living together. They'll rarely talk about it because the roommates now, right? Politics. JCat Taipei, who is a channel member, it looks like. I appreciate you. Says, I miss Taiwan. I will be back. Thank you. Yo, got me through the doldrums of the U.S. Come on, living in the U.S. can't be that bad. I went to California once and I loved it. Send me love, Anderson. Yeah, I do remember him. I'm surprised that some foreigners care to even discuss about this kind of thing. Yeah, it's interesting to foreigners. It's interesting to me. And I think that the reason I'm talking about it is just to get a better understanding of it, because I think a lot of this situation kind of got lost in translation, or it's difficult for foreigners to understand it because it's a bit complex and it's a bit nuanced. And I think it's hard for Taiwanese people to explain it to foreigners because the English is so difficult when you're talking about this kind of thing. So I've been trying to talk to Taiwanese friends about it. Not that it doesn't matter. I can't vote. I'm not Taiwanese. I can't. I've no horse in this race, right? My opinion doesn't matter. I'm not Taiwanese. I just would like to understand it. But I find that my friends either don't care or they just can't. It's too hard to explain. From Taiwan, by the way. Cool, Tim. You have a very not Taiwanese name. Mark Vogel says, so what did they do? Nothing. They didn't. The vote failed. Soul Life. So, do you talk to Matt, Winston, or Vivi anymore? Yeah, I talked to Matt. I never call him Matt. I talked to Simok last week. We talked about cars, I think. Yeah, Lai is an idealist aiming for official Taiwanese independence. Yeah, I don't see that happening. Jeju Den says, party in Taiwan. Paul says, I'm off. Love you. See you, buddy. Message me on Facebook or something. I don't have my WeChat account anymore. Tim Williams says, well, you can say something in Mandarin and we can rate it for you. Well, funny you should say that, because last month, 2 months ago, I made a whole video. It wasn't a very popular one, but I spoke Chinese in the whole video. Although I think my Chinese is better now that I'm taking classes. Wal Niao says, as long as DPP Taiwan separatists get out. As long as DPP Taiwan separatists get out. Not sure what that means. Cynical 1234 says, met a pro-independence Taiwanese man who was dating a girl from Beijing. It was an interesting dynamic. Hot damn. Yeah, I wonder what kind of arguments they had. That's that's a Jesus. I would hate to be in the same room as them if, like, oops, sorry, let me turn my phone off. Oh, it's Paul. Goddamn, I would hate to be in the room with them. Let me just message my buddy. He was in the chat a minute ago. Yeah, goddamn. Girl from Beijing and a guy who's pro Taiwanese independence. That's insane. Can't even imagine. The amendment proposes to shorten the period for Chinese spouses to obtain. Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. So if a Taiwanese marries a Chinese person, it takes them 6 years to get a Taiwanese ID card, and they wanted to pass this amendment that shortened it to 4 years, and that's what you were talking about. I know what you mean now. JCat Taipei says, thank you, man. Taipei forever, but coming back to retire. Oh, wow. Maybe Tainan. Loved your video on the cheap. Cheers, man. Yeah, Tainan would be cool to retire. I think a lot of people go to Taidong to retire, but I don't see many people coming. Like, oftentimes they already live in Taiwan and then they retire. But I think a lot of people, don't they go to like Thailand or something to retire? Isn't that like the more common? Because they've got like better beaches and cheaper food and better, I don't know, weather. I've never been to Thailand, but it's cheaper. Mentaiko says, I feel that Taiwan's elections have a very direct impact on people's lives. What you vote can affect you right away or soon. I wonder if it's the same in other countries. That would be a question for other people, because I have no idea. I think most people have reached a level of cynicism, or they're cynical about it. Like, I think, I'm gonna, like, just to use my country as an example again, I think most people in Canada are they're like, it doesn't even matter if we vote liberal or conservative. The country is effed. Like, Canada's like, Canada can't even figure out how to get a house for under $1 million. Like, I don't get it. And it's the same with Australia. It's the same. Australia and Canada are two weird. I always bring up Australia in my live streams. But that's just because I have a lot of Australian viewers. I don't know, maybe because that's the time I'm doing it. But it's it's just a joke. And I think that a lot of people just kind of throw their arms up and they're like, well, who cares? Like, who cares who we vote for? Like, it doesn't matter. The country's a mess. But yeah. Soul Life says, the cost of living in the US is insane. And now, thanks to the new mega bill, the less money you earn per year, the more you pay in taxes. $40,000 a year salary pays about $1,500 more a year in tax. I don't know. I think, isn't your tax like state based though? Like isn't it by state? Like I'm sure you have a federal tax too though, actually. I'm not sure what that MAGA bill did. I thought it just cut. I don't know. I can't. I don't even know. Like I've heard some things like they're trying to cut the government down to keep spending down because the government was so bloated under Biden. But then this bill is supposed to spend money, which a lot of conservatives didn't like. I don't know. But I also don't think that the cost of living in the US is nearly as high as Canada or Australia. Like I saw somewhere where Canada pays, our cost of living is higher than California, which is the most expensive state to live in the US, right? But the wages are less than the poorest state, which I think was like Missouri or Kansas or I don't remember exactly what the state was. Or maybe it wasn't the wages, maybe it was like the average Canadian produces less than the poorest state or something like that, or something insane. So while I'm sure that the cost of living has gone up in the States, and I'm not trying to downplay I'm not trying to play like the who suffers more game here. I'm sure it sucks. I'm just saying that the situation in places like Canada and Australia are like so much worse. JCat Taipei says, love Uncle Topher. Is he in the chat? Are you just randomly showing love to Topher? I love Topher too. I spent a weekend in Taiwan with him a couple of weeks ago. In Threads, you can see real Taiwanese. What are you talking about? Invade Taiwan. Listen to Lucas and Uncle Topher. Thank you. I must have missed a whole bunch of chats here because I don't know what we're talking about anymore. It's recall of pro-CCP lawmakers, which are mainly KMT. Those KMT lawmakers were forced passing many pro-CCP laws and cutting our defense budgets. Yeah, Mia Jen says that was the accusation. I don't, whether or not it's true or not, I'm not sure. If it is true, then this is a fucking problem because the vote failed. But I think a lot of Taiwanese people maybe didn't believe it. JCat says, don't need a beach, thanks. Oh, well then, yeah, I guess, I don't know. Well, that's good. Taiwan doesn't have a whole lot of nice beaches. Wang Liao says, especially during this massive electoral recall, a lot of them were abused online and will be exiled. Shit. Yeah, being a politician in Taiwan is crazy because you have to be like a pro wrestler at the same time. Cynical1234 says both state and federal. Oh, okay. So what do they do? Just like increase the federal taxes by a ton? Is it income taxes? Is that what you're talking about? JCat Taipei says, sorry for the language, but this sucks. What sucks? My live stream sucks? Am I doing too much chat? Kakashane says, replying to someone, it's definitely false. Not much has changed from being ruled by the KMT to the DPP. Cynical1234 says, unless you're talking about government propaganda, $1 for 5 dumplings. Yeah. Josie says, honest question, what the hell happened to Lauai86? Used to watch his vlogs years ago, but seems like he's gone off the rails. No, it's just I get this question a lot from people who used to really like his channel. And now are kind of put off by his anti-China, anti-CCP, did I say that right? Anti-CCP videos. You have to understand is like YouTubers, most YouTubers are out to get views because views means money, right? And he's found a niche that makes him money and he's doing well for himself. And, you know, he's taking care of his family and he's putting money in his pocket and food on the table. And you kind of have to respect it, right? Making money is hard and he's just doing his thing. I'm not saying that he's lying. I'm not saying his videos he's being untruthful or he's going crazy or now he's some like, you know, tinfoil hat conspiracist? Is that a word? Conspiracist? Conspiracy theorist? What the fuck? I can't speak English. He believes the things he's saying, you know, but but that's what gets views, right? If he went back to making random vlogs, those videos probably, there's a reason he stopped. They probably don't get views, which means he doesn't make money, which means his family can't eat. And so that's it. But nothing's happened to him. He hasn't gone crazy. I still talk to him all the time. John the B1234 says, the reality for Taiwan is that property developers are funding both green and blue, so there's no way the housing issue will ever get addressed. Yeah. It's got the most random whiff of mold. I think I gotta clean my AC. That was gross. Just turned on. That's disgusting. You know what I think will happen is that I think because the population of Taiwan is decreasing because the birth rate is so low, I think it'll just naturally sort itself out. Like there won't be enough people to go and live in those houses. Or what'll happen is that it's just more houses for rich people to buy up. Because I think that was a problem of the past as well, is that there were some people in Taiwan, like the Taiwanese people, Chinese people included, they see purchasing a home as a financial investment. And so they don't see it as like buying a home. They see them as investments. And so what'll happen is like you'll get a rich Taiwanese person who will buy like 3 homes or something like that. And so it's hard for people to buy houses here, and the prices have gone up like just stupid here. Max Pax the Pax says, I don't know how Taiwanese politics works. It's interesting. That's what we're here for. We're here to learn. Rossmore Farah says, mainland wife, 16 years in Japan, mother of 3. She is so conflicted between what she was taught and what she experiences every day. A lot of people are like that. Chinese people, when they leave China and they start to see things from other perspectives, they kind of get a bit conflicted because they've never really heard another opinion on the matter. And so when you grow up believing these things, they're kind of facts to you. And it's kind of hard because it sort of feels like everything you've ever known is suddenly maybe not necessarily a lie, but is now kind of questionable. It's a tough place to be for them, you got to feel for them. JCat Taipei says, Topher is great. Taiwan will never be invaded. Here's to hoping. Steve says, sadly, I don't think people who voted against really care about what those people did in Congress. Maybe. I mean, maybe they didn't care. I don't know. I think a lot of people just had a problem with the idea of kicking out so many people in one go. It seemed a bit, it just seemed a bit like, it just seemed like too much. Like maybe a lot of people didn't, it's not like they were disagreeing with, it's not like they disagree with the fact that they're being pro CCP or that they're not making good decisions. I think it's just the kicking them out of office. I think maybe they didn't agree with. 不打无准备无不把我之章是毛泽东一贯强调的党政指导思想。That Chinese is way too difficult for me to understand. Something about Mao Zedong. If you're going to type something in Chinese, there's a chance I'll be able to read it. But if it's political in nature, I'm not going to be able to understand. My Chinese is not at the level where I can talk politics. Threads are for political nerds, and nobody likes them in real life. What is Threads? Is that Instagram Threads? Is that what people are talking about? I don't have Instagram Threads. We just anti-CCP, not anti-Chinese people. I was thinking about this last night while I was lying in bed for some stupid reason. There's this idea of like, oh, I don't hate the government, or I don't hate the people, I hate the government. But if you meet these people in real life, which I have, they genuinely don't believe in your right to a democracy or right to freedom or right of free speech or even your right to exist as a Taiwanese person. They genuinely believe that you are Chinese and that one day you will be welcomed back into the arms of Mother China. Whether or not they believe that because they've been brainwashed by propaganda or they just genuinely believe that because that's what they want to believe, the fact of the matter is that's what they believe. So I wouldn't blame Taiwanese people if they said something like, no, I don't like Chinese people either, because of the extreme differences in political beliefs. Because, I mean, again, it's not even just political beliefs, it's like human rights beliefs, right? Like, imagine if you just swapped the demographics here for a second. Imagine if an American, like a white American, said that they don't believe that African Americans had the right to vote or the right to be American or the right to freedom of speech. Imagine how that would go. But it's the exact same thing. It's just different people. And now you're going to say, well, we're not anti-Chinese people. It's like, well, but I do get what you mean, though. It's a more peaceful approach to the issue. But yeah, Taiwan will never be invaded, but that's why I watch Lucas and Topher. Hopefully your famille is okay. My famille lives in Canada, and I don't think anyone's going to be invading Canada anytime soon, so they'll be fine. It wasted our public resources. Yeah, it's like I said at the beginning of the stream, the amount of money that the government has here in Taiwan is insane. So it did waste some resources, but I think it was a drop in the bucket in just how much money the government has to spend on things like that. Cynical says there's also the issue of buildable land. Only half of the island is really ideal to build homes and to drive prices down. Yeah, that's true. Like there's definitely a land issue. And I don't know that it's hard, right? Because the population is declining. So I think there's also like a lack of incentive to build no homes as well. I could be wrong though, again, idiot. Profit Man sounds like the West. Yeah, again, it's interesting when you listen to people from different countries and the issues they have with their government or with their quality of life. It's interesting how often you'll find how similar they are, you know? Bowen Wong says, I'm sorry, and Canadians don't. Canadians don't what? The problem is I'm not reading these fast enough, and so he's probably replying to something I said earlier and I've forgotten. I'll read these really quick. It's hard because you guys say interesting things and then I friggin' go off into, but that's what I do this for. I like this. This is more fun. I like having this ability to have more of a direct discussion with you. The Great Recall was started by locals and not between parties. Yeah, that's true. PTP Penguin says, I guess as more and more people rent houses in Taiwan. Yeah, also true. Because again, renting is so much cheaper than buying here. So, I mean, I rent. There's no way I can afford an apartment here. Jay Roden says, Taiwan doesn't have many easy alternative investment options. Good term deposits, high interest bank accounts, etc. So housing is really one of the only options to focus on for saving. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I thought the Taiwanese stock market, again, I am dumb, so you are totally allowed to make fun of me for not understanding this. I'm not someone who knows anything about investing, but I assumed that the Taiwanese stock market was quite robust, or because a lot of Taiwanese people seem to invest in the stock market. But that's interesting. JCat Taipei says you need some big trouble in Little China. What are you talking about? Dolly Trader 07 says, I mean, all I see on Facebook is that they wanted like $10,000, $100,000. They falsely Oh, right. Yeah. The KMT said they'll offer $10,000 to voters or something, which is pretty. Are you allowed to do that? Isn't that like bribing voters? Isn't that illegal in most countries? Mia Jen or MIA Jen, I don't know. Defense budget has been frozen in 304 cases, totaling $39.94 billion by the KMT lawmakers. Yeah, that's one of the things that I have a problem with, because it seems like like the Taiwanese defense budget, you would imagine it is like one of the most important things that they have, right? So why would you freeze that? And that's what I don't understand from the KMT's perspective. Like, I guess it appeases excuse me, I guess it appeases the KMT in some way by freezing the defense budget, right? Like if they increase the defense budget and bought like, more HIMARS missiles or some kind of like Iron Dome thing similar to what Israel has, then it would really piss China off. But it definitely, like when they do things like that, it definitely does seem pro CCP, right? Like you can see why a lot of people kind of start pointing fingers at the KMT, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, how can you not be working for the Chinese government at this point? JCat Taipei says, 你的中文非常好。谢谢, but it's not that good. Mia Jen says 5.1 billion was deleted from the budget for military equipment and facilities. Pretty mad. You know what I think that Taiwan also has to focus on, and I think they are, because I saw an interview with the vice president talking about the training program as well for the Taiwanese military, particularly the mandatory service that men have to do here. When you talk to Taiwanese men who've gone through the training, every single one of them will tell you that it is complete bullshit. They don't feel prepared. They don't feel like they've been adequately trained or equipped to deal with any kind of invasion. So I think the budget is definitely something that they have to be concerned about, but I also think the quality of the things that they spend their money on is also really important. Because what they'll do with the money that they do have is they'll buy tanks. And I think most military analysts, I am not one, again, I am an idiot on the internet, but most people that I talk to who are more like Topher, who's more familiar with these types of things, all agree that tanks are the dumb, like they just don't seem to serve a role in this. Like, why the heck, like, what the fuck would a tank, like, it just doesn't, in this theater of war, you know what I mean? Like a tank just doesn't make any goddamn sense. Taiwan is just geographically just doesn't make sense to be buying so many tanks. So I think it's also like like I'm saying, the budget is one thing, but I think the quality of things that they're buying also matters. Most popular Japanese alcohol beverage company in Taiwan, Kirin, Asahi, or Suntory? Good question. I don't know. All of them are very popular because those companies also, random question by the way, but those companies also own like soft drinks as well. I don't remember which ones, but they're all very, very popular. I don't drink it anymore, but my personal favorite back in the day was Asahi. I loved Asahi beer. I used to drink. Fuck me. I used to drink too much, obviously. But Asahi was my poison of choice. Goddamn, I would get home from work and buy like, oh, it's embarrassing to say. Like if I was only gonna drink beer that night, I could have drank like 10 tall boys of those. Fucking love them, especially because like I love them because like Taiwan's extremely hot. And when I got home from like a hot day, just cracking open a crisp, icy cold Asahi super dry, god damn, used to love that. But no longer. I am a water drinking boy now. I'm a water boy. Mia Jen says 1.3 billion was deleted from the budget for war preparedness, engineering, equipment, and investment. God damn. Ray J. Roden says Australia has roughly the same population as Taiwan, and it has a defense budget of 740 billion NT. That's crazy. Well, also on my last live stream, we were talking about how the Australian government leased out. Oh, fuck, what port was it? Perth? No, Darwin? I don't even know why I'm looking at this because it doesn't really matter. But God, someone's going to tell me in the chat quicker than I can find this stupid place in Australia. Derby, maybe, or Darwin. What the hell? I thought it was like Port something. Anyways, it doesn't matter. They leased out a port to China for like 100 years or something, which I thought was insane. Always, Mao Zedong, oh, this is what you typed in Chinese. Mao Zedong always emphasized the principle of not fighting a battle without preparation or confidence. Yeah. Recall is not crazy. When there's a conflict between the legislation and administration, one of them must go. Some other countries can dissolve the parliament. Is that the same thing? Bowen Wang says, you were talking about Chinese/Taiwanese believe in investment in real estate business like Canadians don't. How many properties do the boomers like to own? How much refinances do Canadians carry? Yeah, I mean, Canadians, they don't. I think there was a time when Canadians looked at it as an investment, but now it's looked at as a luxury. Very few Canadians own multiple homes these days. Most of the time, it's corporations that'll buy up these residential areas, and that's driving up the price a lot as well. And Canada has a lot of issues with development. So, it's the second biggest country in the world. And yet it is so hard for them to build new houses because of just a lot of bureaucratic nonsense. It's a goddamn mess, really. And I seriously, I don't think, even if they voted conservative in the next election, I don't even think it would make a goddamn difference. I think maybe there'll be a political party or some politician that can slow down the increased cost of housing, but I don't think it's going to go down, like unless the market crashes or something. Willow says, so you don't know Taiwanese politics yet. Well, are you just saying that because I said something you disagree with? Or I admit I don't know everything about Taiwanese politics. I'm still learning. It's part of the reason why I'm doing this stream, so we can chat about it. Kakashane says and FYI, with all that frozen and deleted budget, the national defense budget of 2025 is still at an all-time high. Ooh, we got some back and forth here between KMT and Green Party. AI says Taiwan's defense budget is not far off Australia. Taiwan's defense budget for 2025 is set at approximately 647 billion, which is around 19.8 billion, which is about 2.45% of its GDP. Well, that's AI. Can't trust that. Jay Roden says Taiwan's war games with the US/Australia estimate that China will land an army in Taiwan and eventually defeat China on land. It's too hard to say what would happen. Yes, Australians, man. Defense port is operated by China. Lol. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. Resources are being used on needless political conflict. Well, I don't know. I think if there was enough people who wanted this vote, is it a waste? Like, even if they voted no, isn't the fact that they had the vote worth it? You know what I mean? Like, they were investing in their own democracy. What I love was a response from Taiwan. It was something like, there was like a Chinese politician or something who criticized the vote, the idea of the vote. And then there was a Taiwanese politician who was like, China's not, what did he say? Qualified to criticize Taiwanese democracy, which I love that response. You're not even qualified to criticize this. I thought that was a pretty funny comeback. Bowen Wang says, I know because I'm Canadian now. Canada's fucked. Yeah, it sucks, dude. It's a fucked country. I really don't see how they're going to come back from it. And I don't know how young Canadians are going to buy homes. Most of my friends own homes now. They mostly bought their homes in the 2010s, like 2015, 2016, 2017, when they were still really what the hell? My light died. Sorry, you're going to have to deal with low light prosy from now on. I don't have any other lights. Sorry, this will have to do. Most of my, what the fuck was I just talking about? Most of my Canadian friends bought houses when they were a little bit cheaper. Still expensive, but cheaper. But, they all told me if they had to buy a house now, it'd be like, no goddamn way. There's just no way people can afford them. Ross Moore-Farr says, saw a news report about huge Chinese amphibious pier building boats designed to get Chinese tanks onto yeah, those made the news lately. China built these fucking insane boats. They're basically bridges on boats, and what they solve the problem of Taiwan's beaches not being good for landing an army on because they might be too shallow or too rocky or too whatever. And so these boats can come up. They have these legs that come down, and so the boat basically lifts itself up and stands in the seafloor bed, and the boats can link up and create a bridge, and so they can easily transport troops and tanks and stuff. But Topher made a really good video about them, and I talked to him at length about these things, and they're just not a very it's yet to be seen how effective they'll be, because they do look like some pretty easy targets. You know what I mean? Like, these boats are going to stay in place. I mean, I think they'll only be used. The idea is that they'll only be used once China gains air superiority, I think is the idea. But check out Topher's video. He had a really interesting video about it. Based on defense budget cut, ROC Army can only send 4 students to Virginia Military Institute, which was 12 before. Really? Come on, there has to be more than that. Steve says, also due to budget cut, it's hard for military to send the whole battalion of soldiers to the U.S. for training. I think that's why there are U.S. personnel in Taiwan training forces. Not a lot. I think it's a lot of special forces training. They're here doing that. We need to ask the DPP. Being Hum says, Prozzy, it would be great if you do more motorbike videos about Taiwan. I really like making motovlogs, but I feel like they're a bit lazy, and I don't know if I don't know if everyone likes them, but I quite like making them. I should make another one. What's funny is that I use this now. It's funny that I just had this. This is an Insta360 1R. It came out in 2020, beginning of 2020, and it's okay. The cool thing about them is they're modular, so you can take them apart. That's the battery, this is the lens, but I can take this lens off and stick a 360 lens on here and turn it into a 360 camera. But the image quality is kind of garbage, and it's an Insta360 product, so there's extra processing that goes at the end of it. It's just fucking annoying. And I used to have a GoPro 8, and I liked the GoPros. I used to like the GoPros back when they were good. And I lent it to Alan. He jumped in the ocean with it, broke it. and he gave me this as a sort of compensation, I guess. And just last week, I was like clearing out a shelf, and I found my old GoPro, and I just like slapped the battery in there and decided to try and turn it on, and it did. And now it's outside of my balcony because the inside of the GoPro is full of salt, because it went in the ocean, and I guess the salt fucked it up. And so what I did is I took the battery out and I opened up the side door and I rinsed the inside with water. Like I just doused my GoPro in water. It wasn't on, there was no battery in it. And then I left it outside to dry. It's been out there for like a week. I just really want to make sure that everything is dry before I put a battery in there and see if it works. But if it does work, I'd love to use it again for more vlogs. Wang Liao says, so what is the outcome of all this mass electoral recall? Zillions of money for nothing. It wasn't zillions. And it wasn't for nothing. I mean, yeah, nothing happened because the vote failed, but people had their voices heard, right? So, and that's worth it, I think. PT Penguin says, or us just sell to us. Or US just sell to us. Oh, okay, I see. Jay Roden says, is the talk about Canadian states succeeding from Canada mostly just talk? Or does anyone think that's even slightly possible? That's real. I saw a video essay not too long ago about Canada not existing in like 100 years or something. Or maybe it was less. Maybe it was like 50 years. Because it was something like if Alberta were to decide to leave Canada because they're fed up with having to support the other provinces, right? So Alberta makes a lot of money from the oil sands. There's a lot of natural resources in Alberta, and they have to send money to a lot of the maritime provinces to support them. And a lot of Albertans find that extremely unfair, which is funny because if you look back in history, it was the other way around. Like those provinces had to send Alberta money. But anyways, and so if Albertans decided to say fuck it and leave, then it would give Quebec I suppose, the right to leave Canada, which a lot of Quebecers feel like they should do. They don't feel like they are Canadian. They feel like they have their own culture. And then if they left, then Ontario might be like, well, then we may as well have our own thing. And then the Maritimes would probably break off, and some would join the states. And I think it's a real possibility, honestly. Not like how much of a possibility is it? I don't know, but I don't think it's a 0%. But yeah, they hold 20 soldiers. Watch. Thank you. I am in the US. You and Alan got me through this stuff. Can't wait to get back. You are more important than you think. Tear. Cheers, man. It's always crazy to read comments like that because I think sometimes it's not like I hate my own videos, but sometimes when I'm editing a video, I'm just like, God, this video sucks. You know what I mean? So, but it's nice to hear things like that. I mean that truly. Wang Liao says maybe the voice of South Taiwan people who suffered hurricane and floods are more worth listening to. Yeah, that's a big controversy as well here in Taiwan, is that we've had a lot of typhoons come through. I just had a fucking tsunami warning on my phone this morning. How crazy is that? Anyways, and a lot of these farms got ripped apart, and I guess the government isn't reacting fast enough, and it's really pissing people off. Kevin says, which is ironic because those same people suffering are the ones who voted against the recall as well. Kevin says, very similar to Americans voting away their Medicare. Luisa Liao says, I think Lai Ching, the government, should do more to focus on people, but election. Look how typhoon and rain has affected southern Taiwan. People are suffering. Yeah, I think this is a problem. Sorry, I'm quite thirsty because I've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes and I didn't get my water ready. But I think that is a good point. Um, you know, a lot of political parties, not just in Taiwan, but when they find themselves in power, for an extended period of time, like the DPP have, they tend to focus more on trying to retain that power rather than actually like listen to the voter base or listen to the people, and that's how they get voted out. And it happens like so many times. David says big earthquake in eastern Russia. I just now read about it. That's why there was a tsunami warning. Yeah. When I got it this morning, I was like freaking out because I thought it was like just off the coast of Taiwan or something like that. You know what I mean? Because I didn't know it was off the coast of Russia at the time. Because I think they were a bit late sending out the message because the earthquake happened. Japan issued a tsunami warning, and then Taiwan followed suit after that. But I just saw, I hadn't read the news or anything. I just saw it on my phone, and I was like, God damn it. Because I would be fine in a tsunami, I think, based off where I live. Because Taichung isn't all that close to the coast. Like if you were in Central District Taichung and wanted to drive to the coast, it would take you like over an hour probably. But I live a bit closer to the coast, but up on a hill, so I think I would be fine. But Taiwan just gets like, especially this year, we've been getting smashed. Russia server happened an earthquake. Jay says, I think what people misunderstand about the recall vote is that the KMT is not just the old people party. It's also the main option for people who want Taiwan to be more war avoidant. Yes, probably true. It does have like a stereotype, or like the KMT has like a what? An image of being the old people party, because a lot of when the KMT came to Taiwan, like all those people are now old or dead, and so now it's their kids who are in that party. It's weird in Taiwanese politics just how much it depends on what family you're from, right? So like if your parents vote KMT, then you vote KMT. Like if you're not particularly all that political of a person and you don't know how to vote for, your parents will just be like, go vote KMT. And you're like, okay. I've met a lot of people like that. We asked them like, oh, who'd you vote for, KMT or DPP? And they go, oh, whatever, like DPP or whatever. And you're like, oh, and they go, it's just what my parents vote for. It's very interesting. It's a pretty unique thing to Taiwan, I think. Like, I think you would rarely meet an American or a Canadian or a Brit or whatever who votes for a party just because their parents do. Just for fun, where to live in Taichung? I am a Taipei Ren. Where to live in Taichung? I think West District is pretty popular these days. There's a lot of like international. There's a lot of Japanese restaurants around there. A lot of Western restaurants popping up. There's that big park that's around there. It's nice. A lot of people like to live around there. I lived there for a long time. I enjoyed it. North District is pretty popular these days. If you can find, I was going to say if you can find somewhere around the only MRT line we have, but the MRT line's it's not going to take you anywhere you want to go. But yeah, I think it's hard. Taiwan's election always choose who is not worse. Yeah, I heard that a lot from Americans. When they were voting, oftentimes when Americans vote, it's like, it's not like I want to vote for Trump. It's just the alternative is shittier. Like both are shit. It's just that one's shittier, Yeah. The people I know who vote KMT either have business interests and want stability or worry about war. Yeah, same. Like a lot of, if my Taiwanese friends, no, actually not true. There's a few Taiwanese friends that I have that have businesses in China or like deal with a Chinese business in some way, and they might vote KMT. But like a lot of the people that I know that typically vote KMT are, it's like dynastical or something, or it's like their parents are KMT, so they vote for them. Billy's son says, I believe most people do not care about legislative procedural issues or the breakdown of systems. What most people care about is whether or not they are making money. See, that right there, Billy's son, is exactly what I was talking about maybe like an hour, half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago or something like that, about this Chinese mentality of not caring about politics at all. Or I should say, politics at that level, right? I was talking about how Chinese people don't care about voting or don't care about who runs the country because it doesn't affect them. All they care about is if they can make money. And as soon as they can't make money to the point where people are like starving to death, then all of a sudden they care. And that's how you get a revolution in Chinese terms. And it's funny you say that about Taiwanese people because and I'm not saying that Taiwanese people and Chinese people are the same, but that right there is the exact same thing. Like Chinese people also do not care who runs the country. If they can make money, Hitler could run China, they wouldn't care. We all care about this, but the DPP did something worse to other parties. Kevin says it's always a lesser of two evils. Not to be too serious. Agree to Kevin. Kevin's right, exactly. Yeah. You are great. I am launching my YouTube video, JCat Drinks Taipei, based on your videos. Just raw and fun. Oh, good luck, man. Hope you, most important thing is that you just enjoy making videos. Wang Liao says, it's a crime for people who cares only about their living standards. It's not a crime. I'm just saying there's more to life than only caring about that, you know? Aragami Sensei says, what they care about is how it affects their country in Canada. Is it fit their ideological perspective? In Canada, people vote. Yeah, I would say it's pretty ideological. Jesus Christ. Sorry, I can't speak. Ideological. Did my best. Well, having said that, though, Canada's a very liberal country. I myself am quite ideologically conservative, I would say. And I very rarely voice these opinions publicly. I do on the podcast that Alan and I have, but I don't talk about the way I see things because it's not anyone else's business. But most people in Canada are, at least compared to America, quite liberal. So even our Conservative Party is pretty liberal by American standards. Like if you were to compare them to the American Conservatives. So I think a lot of it is ideological, like, whether it's, God, I mean, the last election, a lot of it was this whole like combating American nationalism. That was the big thing, at least towards the end. The election started off being a cost of living issue because it was just like, and it still is, out of fucking control in Canada, and people had enough. And so the Conservatives were going to win an absolute landslide, easy peasy, dust off the old hands, throw it in the bin, easy election. And then Trump made a whole bunch of comments about invading Canada, which fucking flipped the script. And then what the hell is his name? God damn it. How the hell did I forget his name? He's the goddamn prime minister. Carney. God damn, I didn't even have to look it up. It came back to me. Mark Carney came in. He seemed like kind of something new, something fresh, something to breathe new life into the Liberal Party. And it was a landslide victory. Well, it wasn't a landslide victory, but it went the complete other way, and the Liberals got voted in again. And on top of that, Paul Poilievre lost his own seat in Carleton, which is very close to where I grew up. Just a freaking crazy election. Everyone thought that the Conservatives are going to win, and then it's madness. Wally says it's not about making money; it's about improving living standards. I think it depends. I think in Taiwan, if you're rich, it's about making money. If you're not rich, it's about improving living standards. I think it depends on who you are. Kevin says, but I wouldn't necessarily say the DPP did worse. President Tsai did a very solid job with her foreign policy. President Lai has just been too stagnant. Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier in the podcast. In the live stream, is that, like you said, President Tsai, I think, was quite popular. I think people see her in a pretty favorable light. But President Lai seems to be a bit, again, like you said, a bit too stagnant, but also a bit too, what did I say? A bit too much like a puppet. Like he doesn't seem the ability to like drum up ideas on his own. You know what I mean? He's kind of just sort of towing the party line, if that makes sense. And so he's not nearly as popular as Tsai was. So I wonder in the next election if he's going to be able to pull something off. He just doesn't seem to have the charisma, you know? Kevin says, but again, the recall failing to remove pro-CCP politicians is concerning. Yeah, I think if it's true that they are pro-CCP, then it definitely is concerning. But again, there's no real proof that they are, right? I truly believe Taiwan would be much more balanced in politics if all parties were anti-CCP. Yeah. But again, Kevin, if you listen to what, was it Jay Rodin who was saying that earlier? He was the one who said that the KMT is not just an old people party, it's also kind of an anti-war party, because it's not everyone wants to be. I mean, I think everyone ideologically is kind of anti-CCP, but a lot of people are also anti-war, right? And it was like I was saying earlier with the two schools of thought, right? Your school of thought, Kevin, the one you're talking about, is being anti-CCP, pro-independence, pro-Taiwan, and there's a real advantage to that because you can pay more attention to military budgets. You can focus more on your intelligence gathering and protection of intelligence gathering, like with spying, right? Which is a huge problem in Taiwan. However, you're also antagonizing the CCP and you're poking the hornet's nest, and you could make the argument that the chances of an invasion happening go up when you do things like that. And so that's why there's that other school of thought, the KMT school of thought, which is more about appeasement, right? Not pissing them off. Oh boy, my throat's getting dry. Let me just make sure I didn't miss any super chats. I don't think I got any super chats yet, which is fine. I'm not going to beg on the internet for money. Give me money. Actually, no, it would tell me at the top. Never mind. It was a waste of time. Doug Ford is like America's Trump, and he still seems like a slight improvement. LMAO. Is Doug Ford still is he still the premier of Ontario? Is he still doing his thing? Didn't his brother die? Something? Who was his brother again? He was crazy. Was it Rob Ford? The guy who was like doing cocaine or something. It's friggin' nuts. So he's still the premier of Ontario. I had no idea he was still in politics. Whoa, super chat right on the wow, right on cue. Queenie. Cheers. Thank you so much. So because it's a super chat, I always single them out and read them first. It's only fair. 170 NT. Thank you. I'll put that towards maybe dinner later. I have to do my exercises and then I eat my dinner. Just to let you know, the DPP spent a lot of bucks or dollars to cognitive warfare on social media. The DPP spent a lot of money. It's funny that you define it as cognitive warfare on social media. I'm not saying you're wrong. I think it's an interesting outlook because I think a lot of people, not a lot of people, I think the DPP would define it as anti-propaganda. And that's a rough term, right? Because you can easily get anti-propaganda confused with censorship. But I think that the amount of propaganda that comes out of China into Taiwan is immense. And so the government has to combat that somehow. And I suppose, I don't know, are you looking at that as like propaganda from this side? You know what I mean? It's so hard, right? Because you have to like, what's the truth? You know, if you're going to call everything that you don't agree with propaganda, if that makes sense. You've been gone so long, you wouldn't even recognize Canada now. So I've heard many times. Like, it just doesn't seem like Canada's the same country that I grew up in. Yeah, and Carney lied. He's a politician. Well, he wasn't, but now he is. That's what they do, don't they? Ford's nowhere close to Trump. I'm not. That's what Bowen Wang said. Wong. Soul Life says Polyev. Aragami Sensei says his way to power. The new liberal is conceding to a bunch of Trump's demands, though, so it's almost like a conservative one. I don't think that the conservatives were ready to like concede to America's requests. Like, I think some of the requests that they were going to concede to would be like tightening down the border because of like this fentanyl crisis. Now, like how much fentanyl is actually getting passed through the border, I don't know. But I did. This is just anecdotal. I went home to Ottawa 2-3 years ago, I think it was now. And I saw people downtown Ottawa like high as hell on fentanyl. And you know it's fentanyl too, because it's got a real, it's like, you know, that classic high where they're all bent over and frozen in time. It's fucking mad. So I think one of the things they wanted to do was like tie down the border. And even if there wasn't fentanyl, it's like, it's one of those whatever things where it's like, fine, tighten down the border. Who cares? You know? Well, 99% of Taiwanese people are not rich, so I guess it's normal to care about living standards. It is, yeah. I'm not arguing with you on that. EJ Wong says, I've been living in Taipei, and for the past year, the DPP supporters have been causing a disturbance at every street corner. Yeah, I feel you, buddy. That's what I said about the trucker protests in Ottawa. Bone Wong says, ROB, he smoked crack. Yeah. Fucking Rob Ford, boy. Denone says, Prodigy Rob Ford's like news from a decade ago. I know, I'm just saying, like, I was just saying. Ross Moore Farr says a lot of Chinese immigrants these days, but many Japanese hopes for more Taiwanese. Yeah. Jay Roden says, I know younger people who actually fully buy into the content that is considered CPP propaganda. Yeah, I do too, which is really sad. Queenie Rowland says, good to know, enjoy. And thank you again for the super chat, I appreciate it. EJ Wong says, I think so too, but it probably happens with every political party. The North, Taiwan is in the middle between China and the US. As long as it doesn't sway too much either way, it is an advantage. Yeah, that's that status quo we keep talking about, right? That they're constantly trying to maintain that. Soul Life says Canada seems to be Americanizing, which is sad. I don't. That's a tough one. If you watch JJ McCullough, is that how you pronounce his last name? He's a Canadian YouTuber. I quite like his content, and he points out that he thinks it's more interesting to focus on how similar Canadians and Americans are, because we are. Canadians don't like to admit that, but we are extremely similar. We consume the same pop culture. We speak the same language. We have very closely the same accents, obviously depending on where you are, because it's both places are massive. We're very similar. There's still differences, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't say we're like Americanizing. And I wouldn't even say it's a bad thing either. Like, what's wrong with that? You know? We're already so similar. I feel like appeasement doesn't actually work when it's with the CCP. Much of the Belt and Road Initiative hasn't really benefited economically. That's another good point, Kevin, too, that I forgot to touch on, is that when you do things like try to appease the CCP, you end up giving a little bit each time, right? Every time you cut the defense budget a little bit, every time you freeze the defense budget, every time you make that little economic deal that maybe is a little bit more favorable for China, you give them an inch, they take a mile, or whatever that saying goes, or they take a foot. I don't know. And China's really good at playing the long game, the patient game. And the problem with the KMT's approach to this is it is so much easier for China to implement intelligence in like gathering here. And I think a lot of people are bothered by that. They don't want to be like too close to China, That's what scares people about the KMT tactics. So you've got a good point. North says appeasement has been working for decades, though. I mean, it works until it doesn't, right? Like, how close to China do you really want to be? It's kind of like the situation with Canada and America. I mean, not exactly the same, but I hope you see my point, where it's like someone just said that they feel sad because Canada seems to be Americanizing. And it's like, well, that's kind of what you get when you have such close trade relationships and such a close culture, So yeah, Welfare Leech says, did anyone ever tell you that you look like fucking hell? Everyone tells me that. Everyone tells me that all the time. I'm getting old, guys, People used to say I look like young John Travolta or young Alec Baldwin or something like that. I can't remember which one it was. But now I'm just getting old. You know what I kind of want to make a video about it as well, not to get too crazy off topic, is about being a man. I'm entering my mid-30s as a man in Taiwan, and all of the changes that entails, and trying to take care of myself. Because there's things that Taiwanese men do that most Western men don't, that I find myself kind of like falling into, if that makes sense. Like lately, this is the fucking embarrassing. I don't know why it's embarrassing, but like I'm getting old, right? So I've got like wrinkles, and it's wow. You guys probably can't hear that, but it just started absolutely downpouring outside. I get wrinkles, and it's easier for my skin to get dry, and like, you have to take things like sunburn more seriously when you get older, because you don't want to get skin cancer. And excess exposure to sun's really bad for you, and it's Taiwan. We get a lot of sun a lot of the times. So now I've like adopted like I've just bought like skincare routine stuff. Which, if you told me that a year ago, I would have been like, that is the most, I don't think we were allowed to use that word anymore, but the most feminine thing ever. Like, what man has a skincare routine? I wash my face with water. I wake up, I wash my face with water. No, like I take a shower, you know what I mean? But like, I just use soap and water. And then when I go right before I go to bed, I wash my face with water and I go to bed because I'm a man. I don't know if we put lotion. I'm a man, you know? But then now that me and more of my friends are getting older, like, you gotta fucking moisturize, dude. You're old as shit. I was like, I gotta what? And so I started going on videos, and now I just in the last few days I started using like it's like a moisturizer that's also a sunscreen for the morning. It's just insane. And I've started to work out a little bit. Nothing serious. Like, obviously you can tell I'm not fucking nothing. I'm not a strong man. But through my whole life, I've always done cardio. I've always run a few times a week. I enjoyed running. I used to play sports when I was younger. And then when I got too old to play sports, not too old, but just like, you know, you can't play in a league anymore, I guess. I started running instead, and then I broke my foot. So I started walking. And now I do like at home, just like body weight exercises, you know, like push-ups, dips, bicycle crunches, squats, alternating squat. I don't fucking know what I'm doing, guys. I'm just trying to take care of myself. Why the hell did I start talking about that? Oh, because I look like Luca. Yeah, and I'm getting old as shit. And then I started ranting on about how I got to start changing things in my life to take better care of myself. And I stopped drinking, and I'm just a boring old man now. It's fucking ridiculous. Kevin says, but I think it's true that it avoids war and tension at the cost of your own borders and boundaries. Yeah. Switzerland says, you were against the trucker protests? No, I wasn't. I'm just saying that someone commented on how he lives in Taipei and DPP supporters are being a nuisance in the city he was from, sorry, that he lives in. But I'm from Ottawa, and I think I agreed with what the truckers were saying. But because I'm from Ottawa, a lot of my friends who live there were quite annoyed with the noise they were making all night long. That was the only point I was making. Prozzy says, Alex says, Prozzy, do you think a kitchen is needed in Taipei as a student? No, I don't have a kitchen. I have no kitchen in here. You don't need one. And I love cooking, but you can just get Uber Eats every day if you want to, or there'll be a restaurant somewhere close by. Wang Liao says, exports from Taiwan to mainland China made 30% of Taiwan's GDP. Just cut the tie and be independent Taiwan. Yeah, but you can't cut 30% of Taiwan's GDP. Oh, no, sorry. Exports from Taiwan to China. What do you mean? If you just cut China out and drop 30% of your GDP, isn't that like a ton of money? Harley Hub says, U.S. appeasement. What does the U.S. ask of Taiwan? I don't know. Computer chips, probably. Welfare Leech says, I'm not saying bad. I'm just saying the physical resemblance is there. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I didn't take it the wrong way or anything. I get it all the time. Like, so many Taiwanese people walk up to me like, you look like that NBA guy. I don't watch an NBA, but I know who he is just because I get that comment so often. It's funny. Jay Roden says, the amount of Taiwanese people who dye their hair is amazing, but it really makes them look younger. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, Taiwanese men dye their hair. That's what I was going to say. All these things that Taiwanese men do that Western people don't do. So they have skincare routines, but from like a much younger age. Like, I think now a lot of Western men have a very simple skin routine, like at least a moisturizer or something when they're older, right? When they get around my age. But younger men, like, no, like my dad never had a goddamn skincare routine, right? So like I never fucking even heard of it for men. Um, but Taiwanese men get their fucking eyebrows done, you know, like, and not even for men. Like I get if you're a dude with some like big old massive eyebrows and you want to get them like, I don't know, down to like a regular. I get it, right? You got a unibrow. You want to do your eyebrows. I kind of get that. But Taiwanese men they'll even do makeup. They'll put like eyebrow makeup. I don't know what that's called. What the fuck is eyebrow makeup called? Is that mascara or is that one for your eyes? It doesn't matter. They do eyebrow, or sometimes they tattoo their eyebrows to make them look, because a lot of Taiwanese men have thin eyebrows, like the hair on their eyebrows is thin. So to make it look thicker, they'll put makeup on, or they'll even use like a makeup foundation, which is like, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying it's just kind of interesting how different they are. Supplements are huge. Chinese people love taking supplements as well. Sorry, this is probably boring for you guys. Alex says it's cheaper to eat out, basically. Yeah, it's way cheaper to eat out in Taiwan than it is to cook at home. Denor says, Prozzy, if you're living in Taiwan long term, you also got to get private health insurance. I have whatever the regular health insurance is, but you're right, I should get better insurance. It's hard with things like insurance, you know, like life insurance and stuff, because my income is so sporadic, like it's so unstable. It's hard for me to have things that I have to spend money on every month, because I'm so frugal. Like I spend money on fucking nothing. I pay for rent, I pay for food, and that's it. I rarely go shopping. I rarely buy new clothes. I just bought new clothes like recently because all my stuff was getting really old and ripped. But I rarely buy new equipment. Like this camera right here, I started my channel with this. This is Simo's camera, actually, that he sent to me. Because when he was starting his channel with Winston, I gave him a camera that I had that I wasn't using because I wasn't a YouTuber back then. I still have that camera. I don't use it, but I still have it. And I guess to thank me or whatever, he sent me this. So this thing's like from 2016. It's 10 years old. I still use it. Like I rarely buy new stuff. Oops. This computer, not the one I'm using right now, my desktop computer that I use for like gaming and Photoshop, I bought that off CMOC. It's the same one. I spend no money. And I'm always so careful with all of that. And I just don't spend any money. And so, yeah, when I look at health, like if I look at health insurance, and sometimes they can be like, I don't know how much it is. I think my friend has health insurance that covers like all kinds of stuff, like different kinds of cancers and all, and she spends like $2,500 a month or something, which is not a lot, but there's some months where I literally make zero money, right? If I don't get a sponsor, or if or if views are down, like, then that's zero money I made this month, right? It's, and I'm not complaining. That would be entirely my fault, right? I didn't work hard enough. I didn't do a good enough job. If I don't get paid, it's because it's my fault. I'm not complaining. I'm not having fun in my own pity party right now. I'm just explaining that it's hard. I have to be very careful with where I put my money. You definitely need a budget of 300 NT a day for meals, and probably have leftover money most days. 300 NT, yeah, if you're going to eat local food, that'll be enough. Blair says, Prozzy got muscles. I can't tell, Blair. So Blair I would say Blair's a friend of mine, because she was a subscriber and we've been chatting although I haven't chatted with Blair in fucking forever. She disappeared. Not really, because I follow her on Instagram. But Blair is such a a professional shit talker, I can't tell if she's saying Prazi's got muscles or is Prazi's muscle less. Like I haven't got muscles, because I definitely don't. And I age like milk. I used to be a handsome young boy. Yeah, the Dynasty Dudes camera, it is. It's a good camera. It's a Sony A6300. So when I need it for close-up shots of food, I use it. It's great. Most Taiwanese people working age eat out, take out breakfast and dinner. The cost of eating out is comparable to eating at home. I don't think so. I think it's way more expensive to cook at home, at least in my experiences. That's probably because I was cooking a lot of Western food, but I was spending so much money when I used to cook at home. Blair says, as someone who lived in a dorm in Taipei, you definitely don't need a kitchen. And the student canteens are good enough and very cheap. Blair's right, especially if you definitely don't need a kitchen. You gotta get this Western mindset of like what a home is out of your head. You know, in Taiwan, you need to be able to live happily with like a room with a bed, and if you're lucky, a desk. You know, because that's what my house is. I have a bed, I have a sofa, luckily enough, and this desk, and that's like the only thing I own. You know, I've got one room, and it's fine. It's all I need. But yeah. Oh, Blair, mascaras for eyelashes, my guy. I don't know. I don't know anything about makeup. Origami Sensei is still a teacher. No, I haven't been a teacher in 2 years, I think. Eric says, get those skin laser treatments at the dermatologist. That's what I do here in Korea. Makes you age very slow. Super cheap here. I'm guessing in Taiwan too. Yeah. One of my Korean buddies, the guy I did the military challenge with, Bing Show, he does that all the time. But I don't trust it. Blair says, I'd say you're my friend too. Cheers, Blair. And it was a compliment. You're looking good lately, being healthy and all. Cheers, Blair. You too. You looking good too, girl. What the fuck? Yeah, but I think the more shit you do to your face, the worse your skin gets. Like for some reason, like I'm someone I don't trust medicine for some reason, and I don't trust like skincare stuff. You know, I think maybe it's like for women when they wear a lot of makeup too often and it like cakes up their pores and it gives them shit skin. I think that maybe is what it is. But all these products, man, because when I was trying to figure this out, right? Like when my friends were saying, go get moisturizer for your face or something, I was like, okay, I'll go to the store and I'll have a look. And I was like, what the fuck? Dude, there are aisles and aisles and aisles and aisles of skincare products. And I was like, I don't know what the hell any of this stuff is. It's like all kind of, and I don't like, it's probably worse for you, you know? I just want to go back to using water like a man because I've never had particularly all that bad. I don't have bad skin. I never really had bad acne. I don't have really dry skin or really oily skin. I've got normal ass skin. So I don't know what the fuck, because all these products are like still, they're so specialized too, you know? And it doesn't help that I'm so dumb. I can't figure out any of this stuff. I actually think you should do a video on what skincare products Taiwanese use. Oh man, Hannah Choi, who's a channel member. Thank you, Hannah. What products do they use? Every single fucking skincare product you can imagine. Like what Eric was saying, those like skincare treatments that you do at the dermatologist, they do that a lot too. They have these, dude, the machines they have now is insane. But yeah, my Korean buddy posted on Instagram and they like, dude, I swear they rip his face off and put a new one on, dude. He's a new man every time he comes out of there, dude. He didn't even look the same. He fucking gives him a new nose and everything. Not really, but they really get in there. Eric says, no, dude, the technology that got in mind blowing. I'd never give bad advice. uh, Related cleanse. You probably have said this 1,000 times, but do you feel like this time? But do you feel like time is ticking to go back to Canada or the USA with Laowai, or do you think you can live in Asia forever at this point? Yeah. I never think about it that much. I try to like live. It sounds so fucking corny, but I'm just trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing today, you know? But life in Asia is nice. I like it. I like, especially in Taiwan, I like how easygoing it is. I like how there's so many possibilities and there's little in your way, if that makes sense. Like in Canada, in particular, if you wanted to open up a business, a small business, um, it's really hard. There's a lot of bureaucratic red tape you have to go through, and the way that the economy works is it's not favorable for small businesses, because even if your business grows, let's say you are successful, it's probably going to get bought up by one of like the 6 companies that runs the whole goddamn country. Because Canada has a huge monopoly problem. I swear to God, there's like 6 companies that run the whole country. I'm not being a conspiracy theorist. You can watch any video on Canadian economics. They all say the same thing. But here in Taiwan, like there's so little in your way to do stuff like that. And I just like that possibility, and because I live so frugally and I'm able to make little money and still be okay. And I like that because I can be a YouTuber full time and it's fun. Like I like not having to go to work. I mean, it's work. I just like the fact that I don't have to be somewhere. You know what I mean? I don't have to. I don't have to. I was a kindergarten teacher for so long, and that's a really stressful job. Like so. I'm only relying on me now. You know what I mean? Like it's only me. Whereas back when I was a teacher, it's like think about that idea, right? When you have kids, you have a kid, and when you have a kid, everything about your life changes because now you're no longer living for you. You have a whole new purpose in life, and you love this child more than you love life itself, and you will do anything for this child. It's the most important thing to your whole life. And you gave that kid to me to look after. Do you know how fucking dumb I am? And you 16 to 20 people gave me their kids. I got to look after them and teach them and turn them into like, hopefully not serial killers. That's an insane thing to do. And it was so stressful because you're constantly trying to make sure that nothing happens to them. And they rely on you for so much, especially when they're young. Like in kindergarten, when you first get them and they're 3 years old and they can't do anything. It was just so, did my microphone turn off? No, it didn't. It was so stressful. And so now just to be able to breathe a little bit, so nice. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but if you got a series of treatments, you'd look like your late 20s. No. Once you age, like there's no going backwards, right? You can maybe slow it, but I don't think you can go backwards. Delore says, I wouldn't recommend coming back to Canada because you'd have to compete with the millions of new immigrants for opportunities. US would be different. Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people the immigration in Canada is insane. Even like, not to sound racist, but even when I went back 3 years ago, like just looking around my hometown, I was like, God damn, there's a lot of new people in town. I'm not against it. I'm an immigrant. I'm just saying. It's crazy how much has changed. Blair says, I miss living in Asia. If I had the option to move back, I would. Well, why the fuck don't you have the option? Unless it's something personal, don't share it. But no desire to live in North America. Come on. Living in North America is not that bad. Grass is always greener kind of thing. Like, here's one thing that people outside of Asia take for granted that I think about sometimes is like color. This sounds so weird, but like color, at least here in Taiwan, they're all dulled. Like the sky in Taiwan is kind of blue. You know, the trees you see off in the distance are kind of green. The buildings are gray. The ground is gray. The ocean's gray. There's a gray sheen on everything. And when you get out of Taiwan and you go to a country with like clean air, it blows my mind every time. Like if I go home to Canada, I look up at the sky and I'm like, I forgot that the sky was that fucking blue and the trees are that fucking green and the colors are like, they pop. It's like I've just turned off the saturation of life to like 100. It's wild. But yeah, that sounds just like Korea. Yeah. But would you be able to do this outside of Taiwan? Maybe. Like, I think the problem, it's not necessarily the content. Like I could find a way to make content outside of Taiwan. It's the economics of it. You know, it's easy to live cheaply in Taiwan. And I think there's very few places that are developed and nice to live in where that's still a possibility, you know, because the cost of living around the world has gone up so much. It's really hard to live frugally in a lot of places, you know? And I feel like Taiwan's one of those few places where you can still do that outside of Taipei. Taipei is stupid. Yeah, being a YouTuber full-time in Taiwan sounds sweet. I'm a salaryman and the grind is rough. Yeah, that sucks. But hey, man, you know, being a salaryman can't be all that bad, right? You get, I'm assuming you get benefits and a retirement plan, and that's got to be, I don't have that. Dutch Universe says you're going to contribute to Taiwan's declining birth rate. Man, that's a. I would, now that I'm getting older, I would like children. A child. I don't know if I want children, but I would like a child. I think having children's the easy decision to make. I think the difficult decision is finding someone you want to have children with. That's the hard part. You know, loving a kid is easy because it just happens. It's natural, you know. But loving a fucking different, fully grown, like that sounded really fucking pedo-ish. But like, you know, having a partner that you love a long time and you can maintain that relationship while having a kid, I think is more difficult. Copper Newt says, I'm so fucking depressed over the vote. Nah, don't be. It'll all be. It won't matter in a week, I imagine. Blair says, it is bad, but I'm going to grad school again. Once that's done and I find a job back over there, I might just do that. You should come to Taiwan, homie. Come back. You know what's crazy is me and Blair have been talking for like, how long has it been, Blair? 10 years? And we fucking haven't met yet in person. It's fucking wild. Denora says, wow, I'm totally agreeing with the color thing now. Yeah, people don't see it. People don't like nearly 10 years, yeah. People don't like, they forget. The saturation thing is real, you know. It's like I read this book called The Phantom Toll Booth when I was growing up. I used to love that book. And it's about this kid named Milo, and he goes to the doldrums where everything is like black and white and gray and boring and just kind of slow and that's what Taiwan feels like. Not that bad, but you get my point. But yeah, Denor says Canada's cost of living is insane. You'd better be off in Mississippi or Alabama, according to 2025 statistics. That's what I was saying earlier. Yeah, we seriously make less than people in Mississippi. Was it Mississippi or Missouri? What's the poorest state? Whatever that one is. Do you think China is going to throw hands in 27? I don't know. Probably not. Something would have to happen where they would feel confident enough to be able to. If they felt like there was a surefire way that invasion would be successful, then they'll do it. But it would cost them way too much. So I don't know. I don't. I don't think so. Exactly, you forget what the sky looks like when you're living in Taiwan long enough. Yeah, it's just gray all the time. Even when the sky's blue, it's gray. Like it's gray blue because of the pollution. It's fucking insane. Um, uh, okay, so it is Mississippi. The cost of a house is like a quarter compared to Ontario. Yeah, but like, let's be honest. Would you rather live in Ontario or fucking Mississippi? I've heard some shit about Mississippi. I love listening to Americans talk about Mississippi. It's always funny. They take a lot of shit. Dora says, and they make more money. Yeah. Dutch Universe says, ocean is pretty blue in Kending, though. It fucking isn't, though, dude. I remember before I moved to Taiwan, I was looking at pictures on Google. You could probably find it right now. Isn't there? I can think I can share a screen, can't I? Anyways, but I just want to make sure I can find this picture. I looked at Kending and it was that picture. Like, have you ever seen a picture of like the Maldives? Oh, there it's there now. Stupid because you guys can't see it, but have you ever seen a picture of like the Caribbean, and it's like crystal clear blue waters? I've never seen that in real life before, and I've always wanted to. And I saw that picture of Kending and I was so excited. I was like, no way, they have like an actual tropical beach, like it's the fucking Bahamas. And I went there and it was like, it's regular ocean water. Shitty ocean water. Kending's getting shit on lately. Taiwanese people fucking hate Kending now because they can go to Thailand for cheaper. I think we talked about this in the last live stream. Wong says what the fuck is the tone on Wong? That's embarrassing. Whoops. This goddamn thing. Oh, Wong. It's our song. Anyways, the quality of air is terrible in Taiwan, though, since we're still burning coal to generate electricity. Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Like, since Taiwanese people don't want to risk nuclear power, they just burn coal, and they're dumping all this money into green energy, like with the solar panels and the wind farms and stuff. But it's just not enough, and we don't have the technology to store all of that power that it produces. So it's not. And it's crazy because people's electricity bills are going up a lot in Taiwan as well. Yeah, we're better than that. I got a girl from Taiwan in the USA. Got a girl in the USA. They've been together for 5 years and she won't introduce him to her family. Any cultural reason for this? Friend's been trying to get him brack it off to break it off. I have a hard time understanding that message. So the girl won't introduce the guy to the family. It could be because her family doesn't want her dating foreigners. That's pretty common. Or a lot of Taiwanese parents have some, not restrictions, but prerequisites before you date their daughter. Like, you have to earn X amount of money. You have to have this type of job. You have to at least have a car, a house, that type of thing. It's a bit traditional, but some parents are still like that. So that could be it. Or she's cheating on him. Blair says, take care, my dude. I got to get to the lab for some work. Keep it real. And remember, it's a basketball court. Fucking hell. Blair's memory is insane. I once called it a basketball field in a video I made years ago. Okay, so my friend got a girl from Taiwan in the USA and they've been together. Yeah, that's probably just traditional parents. But yeah. Anyways, I have to go do my my workout for today, unfortunately. So I shall leave you. But thank you so much for joining this live stream. It was a lot of fun. I don't remember seeing a lot of you guys on my last stream. There's some new names here. Some of you are recurring, but a lot of you guys are new. And I really appreciate you guys joining. It was fun, man. So thank you so much. enjoy your Wednesday or Tuesday, whatever day it is, wherever you guys are. So I appreciate you. Like I said, thank you. Take care. Have a good week. I have a new video on Friday. It's an interesting one. It's about how my life improved since moving from China to Taiwan. I think that's an interesting idea. So good and goodbye. Love you guys.